Royalty in disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. Royalty in disguise.
Greetings. I'm Camson the Oracle, the founder of New Verse Live, where we are writing new verses, scripting the narrative of our lives to live our highest purpose, to transcend our trauma, to turn our shadow aspects into our supernatural power, our spiritual oomph, and to overcome pain as we turn it into purpose. I want to share with you today a phenomenal exercise that I've been using, and I mentioned this in the last intuitive guide, but I want to bring it up and give more detail about the strategy that I use to transmute my emotions and thoughts if they do not feel good to me in the moment. And the name of the strategy is Obebe. Obebe. This technique is similar to Zen, being more like water, being able to just flow through the emotions and some of the things that come up through the day. We also say woosah, right? If you never heard of woosah, it's a colloquialism that we use. And woosah basically means I need to stop. I need to take a deep breath. I need to pause because I'm about to pop off. I'm about to go 0 to 60 and I don't want to do that. So woosah, right? All right. Obebe. Now that I've told you what it is, I'm going to break it down for you. Oftentimes, the effect of trauma on our brain leads to us being compartmentalized. And so we have all of these compartments that we use to stuff certain emotions, right? And for a lot of us, that's anger. Anger wasn't an emotion that we were allowed to experience and have. And most often, no one taught us a healthy way to process our anger, to be with our anger. Especially growing up, it is my belief that every human being on this planet has been through some form of traumatic experience. And for those of us who are awakening, we know that our childhood conditions created the filter that we use to perceive things. So if being angry as a kid led to you getting in trouble at school, led to you getting in trouble at home, maybe you got punished, maybe you got whoopings for being angry, maybe you were told that you're not allowed to be angry, right? You're not allowed to be angry because you a kid. You ain't got nothing to be angry for. It's so many things that we probably are used to hearing, and so we learn to repress that anger. What I have found that happens is over time, repressed anger turns into many other conditions, personality disorders, mental health imbalances, physical imbalances and symptoms, and we shove it down because we've been programmed to only see it as being useless, inappropriate, unacceptable, and something that may lead to you being abandoned, rejected, or judged. Now, if we have a tendency to stuff these emotions into a compartment, are you going back to them later? Because energy cannot be destroyed, right? It just take on a new form. For some of us, that repressed anger takes on the form of self-deprecating behavior, where we do things that actually reflect the hatred that we feel towards ourselves about certain things about ourselves, especially if it's something that you feel like you can't change or that you have tried to change and it's not getting better. Most often when you're healing, things get worse before they get better. And it's just a part of the process. It seems to be worse, but it's actually getting better. So if you have repressed this anger, now this energy is turning into something else. Maybe this energy is turning into passive aggressiveness. And you get upset about things. You don't express how you're really feeling. So you are passively aggressive or covert aggression. That's one of my go-tos, And I really want to be directly aggressive. But because I lack skills and assertiveness as a result of me being a recovering codependent, always trying to appease and please people, that means that I need to stuff my anger down, even in the moment. And when I don't bring that moment into my awareness, when I don't pause and take a breath, I automatically go into my default way of responding to that. Once this comes up, later I feel bad that I did not share how I really felt, or I didn't take a breather, take a break, take a walk, come back to it. I didn't show emotional maturity in that moment. Later on, I start to criticize and beat myself up about I should have did this. I should have said that. You know better, and especially me being on this side, somebody who is using their life experiences as examples of the journey of being whole and learning how to be more emotionally regulated using many different systems. Because as you can see here in the new verse, like, I look at everything to see if it's beneficial, and if it is, we using it in the new verse, right? We're not judging and just disliking things on the surface that we haven't experienced. As a facilitator and a teacher, that's my goal. So I hold myself to this high standard of perfectionism. Now, my wounded child archetype is the rescuer. And that quiz, super important quiz to take, because if you don't know your archetypal energy of your inner child, it is very difficult for you to show up differently when you are triggered emotionally. So me knowing that I have a tendency to sacrifice myself to rescue others or make others feel better. And because I'm on this side of the conversation, it's worse. And I would berate myself over and over, that I know better, and people expect for me to be perfect, and I can't ever mess it up. And it's delusional to believe that. And even if that is true, it's not my business to regulate other people's emotions. And it's not my business to manage their beliefs about what they perceive about me. Because ultimately, we're all preoccupied with our own lives, what's showing up, living, thinking that people's perception of you somehow controls your life, causes you to edit yourself in ways where you're not being authentic. So with these things happening, the energy now that's coming in is teaching us to isolate the parts of us that just has been edited to the point where we've diluted who we actually are, and we don't know. We're not sure. And that's okay. I hope you all are listening to me. It is okay that you are unsure of exactly who you are, what you really think, and what you believe. Let's be clear. Most of us have beliefs that we inherited. Most of us have beliefs we didn't create. Most of us have ideologies that we gathered from society and entertainment and stuff we watched on TV. When you're watching TV over and over again, you're in a theta state of mind. You're absorbing that, and the things that you can't see, the information, the data that's coming in that you may not be conscious and aware of in the moment goes directly into your subconscious mind. So a lot of us have beliefs that are actually founded in entertainment. Like, what? And so as we are being called to detach from the things that we think make up our identity, and I talk about this, the identity, that's the wounded aspect of us. That's that beautiful vehicle that you have that's dented, and it's got dents everywhere, and those dents came from wounds that you have not been able to heal. Well, there's something outside of the identity, the inherited beliefs, the standards, the expectations we put on ourselves, and that's your I-divinity. Your I-divinity is the innermost being. It is the part of you that never changes. It is the soul. It is the essence of your heart. And a lot of us are emotionally dysregulated. This is a symptom of complex PTSD. Now, I'm not a therapist to tell you that's what it is, but I can bet that if you look at the list of patterns and symptoms, you will resonate with many of them. It is my belief from experience that our traumas are very complex and very unique. And a lot of us may not have the wherewithal, the resources, the time, or support to actually go and get a diagnosis. So for me, I want to share some patterns of complex PTSD just to see maybe you do have some complex traumas that have created patterns that have been difficult to break. And let me say, if you have ever been in any form of narcissistic relationship, whether it is your caregivers that raised you or partners you attracted after, okay? Complex PTSD is very common with people who have experienced narcissistic abuse, all right? So this isn't far-fetched, but if we don't open up the conversation and explore these different things, how can you heal something that you don't know needs to be healed? Now, one of those symptoms is the emotional dysregulation, which I mentioned. People with complex PTSD may experience a range of emotional symptoms such as intense anger, anxiety, or sadness. They may struggle to regulate their emotions and experience emotional outbursts. The second one is a loss of sense of safety. You may have a heightened sense of danger, feeling constantly on guard, easily becoming defensive, and mistrustful of others' true intentions. We can sometimes feel unsafe in seemingly non-threatening situations and experience flashbacks or nightmares related to the trauma. These flashbacks are often emotional. So there may not be a memory. It may not be something playing within the screen of your third eye and you're actually seeing events. It could, but oftentimes it's just emotional. So you could be in a moment that happened to you when you was 12 and you're 35 years old, and that emotional flashback, usually correlating with some external trigger, you go right back to being 11 years old again, and whatever emotional intensity you experienced that you may have compartmentalized at that time comes up. This is the beauty of having a quantum computer right inside of our mind. And you can work with this, turning shadows into superpowers, turning pain into purpose and trauma into triumph. It's all about how can I work with this? Having a negative self-concept would be the third one, which leads to feelings of self-doubt, shame, or guilt. You may even blame yourself for some of the trauma that you experience. And it could also lead to struggling with low self-esteem. Okay. Number 4 is a difficulty forming relationships. CPTSD may make it difficult for individuals to form and maintain meaningful relationships. And sometimes we struggle with trust issues in existing relationships and have difficulty opening up to others. Or we withdraw from certain social situations. Number 5, which has definitely been one of the most difficult ones for me, is hypervigilance. We often experience a heightened sense of awareness or hypervigilance. We may constantly scan our environment for potential threats and have difficulty relaxing. So if this is resonating with you with these 5, you're not alone and you're not hopeless. You can absolutely overcome anything that you are experiencing. And I want to tell you one of the techniques that I use and how you can overcome this. When any of the things that I have named come up for me, the first thing that I stop and do is observe my emotions in a detached state of mind. When I say detached, I mean shifting my mindset to, I'm not going to judge what I'm seeing. If I'm having a panic attack right now, I don't have to judge it. If I'm sad right now, I don't have to judge it. If I'm angry, I don't have to feel bad about it. That's a choice. I can choose my state of mind by choosing my perception of what I'm observing to be something that I'm just not going to judge. I don't know enough to judge it, right? I don't know why this is coming up for me for sure. And it might be just that one thing that I have been praying and meditating and petitioning and using affirmations to tap into. This is an opportunity for me to get closer to myself, for me to create safety around my wounded inner child. By committing to non-judgment, those uncomfortable emotions coming up, they become much less intense. And this allows my body to be more at ease with whatever triggers are coming to the surface. Okay? With energy and emotions. What if those emotions are just aspects of your wounded inner child that was never validated, definitely wasn't regulated, and wasn't seen in a healthy way? What if your inner child is acting out to give you the opportunity to soothe that part of you? Now let me be clear. The inner child within all of us is typically the energy within the subconscious realm that's attracting things into our lives. So if your inner child, let's use me as an example. If your inner child, it has the rescuer archetype, you're going to attract people who are going to expect you to rescue them. And if you fail in any way, you are definitely going to be punished for it, and you're going to hear about it. Because energetically, you're sending out signals. I am here as a sacrifice by any means necessary to rescue you. By me being able to be present with myself, validate myself, and give love to myself in these moments, my inner child is safe. And I'm also creating a sacred space, a sacred circle around myself by how I choose to interact with my wounds. The inner child is what attracts who we develop relationships with. What? I thought I was the one creating relationships. The conscious mind of whoever is listening to this right now, That's not the only element that attracts into your life. I believe our inner child, with the power of creativity, imagination, and just that energy. You know, a child can hold one energy. They can hold one mood, one vibe really, really well, right? And if you got a teenager and maybe you're going through some of those rebellious phases, like, it's really difficult to get them to shift out of that energy. They're really good at holding one focus energetically. So your inner child can have trust issues that have not been addressed. You're going to attract people who also give you a reason to not trust them, because you're sending out the signal, I don't trust anybody. So the universe is going to say, okay, it's no point in sending somebody that you can trust, because you trust no one. The universe does not deliver anything that's not in alignment. Did you get that one? That was huge for me. When I learned my inner child was the one that was getting in the driver's seat, controlling my emotions the way I thought. At first I was like, you are really, really sabotaging me. And then I started to open up the conversations with my inner child. And it's like, no, I'm just trying to get your attention the only way that I know how. Right? Okay. Now, by observing non-judgmentally, which is the OB and OBB, okay, that's the OB. When that energy and motion is simply being observed, a stillness flows into your spirit. There are other words for this, as I spoke about, Wusar or Zen, but these words denote a sense of peace despite the feelings and triggers that may be coming up in your present moment. Some emotions we repress flow to the surface just to help us release the repressed feelings. And we may not understand it. We may not be able to connect the dots. Cancer has been linked to resentment and bitterness and repressed anger. Look at the statistics. The more we live in a state of assimilation without mindful integration, we are creating diseases by being in this toxic state of mind and judging ourselves, berating ourselves, resenting, being unforgiving towards ourselves, being too hard on ourselves. Sometimes these emotions may feel out of place and it just don't fit into the moment. It's like nothing is really happening to warrant me feeling this way. When this happens, that's okay. Go back to the OBB. Just observe how you feel instead of searching for the reason. When we search for the reason, we get lost in our minds. And as we are in Gemini energy right now, which is an air element, there is a tendency to get lost up there in your mind. I recommend some breathing exercises to slow down the mind so that you can become more present in your body. One of my favorites, if you're able to do it, is the breath of fire, the fire breaths. These are really quick inhale, exhales through the nostrils. When I first started, I had a lot of dizziness. It's a little less. But listen to your body. And if that's too much for you, just slow belly breaths. Box breaths. 4, 4, 4. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. When you do this, it's going to slow down the mind. And I actually had, this gives you space to process the emotion, to isolate the thoughts from the emotions, to put space in between the head and the heart. My brother came to visit me today, him and my dad, and he had been having some difficulties. He was feeling discouraged. And, I told him, I get it. And it happens. And I just want to validate, yes, I get it. You definitely have a right to feel discouraged right now. And you definitely have a right to shift out of that if you want to. He said, well, I keep thinking of ways to shift out of it, and I can't think of anything. And I told him, that's number one. You don't have to think. Regulating emotions simply requires you to slow down, to add more oxygen into the body, to calm the limbic system. Our nervous system goes haywire when we're thinking and ruminating in our mind, trying to fix something that's the resistance is causing it to persist. The problem is persistent because we're resisting so much. And when you're thinking, and the brainstorming is not helping you, this actually puts more resistance in the space. It puts more tension in the space. So you actually get farther and farther away from the outcome that's available to you. That may be much more positive and in alignment with your heart and what it is that you need or want. So I told him, take a moment, and I want to do something that I call Obebe with you. He was like, what's that? I was like, we're going to use some observation and some breath. I was like, I got you, if you can follow along. And he did. By the time he got to the 15th fire breath, he stopped and said, whoa, I can't hear my thoughts anymore. And I asked him, how does that feel right now? It's like, it actually feels peaceful. I was like, there you go. Your mind is meant to be a servant to you. It's meant to serve you, not to be the master over you. The heart is meant to be the master. The heart has the exact measurements of the throne in ancient texts because it is the throne in which spirit sits. It is the gateway into the spirit realm where everything is possible and anything, any miracle can happen in this space. So he was pretty impressed because he definitely is an overthinker, and he had never experienced something so quickly and effectively slowing down his thoughts. And I told him, your breath is always with you. This is a tool you can always use. So that leads me to the last part of Obebe, which is the way stillness can serve you. The last B in Obebe is be still. So you're going to validate yourself, validate the feelings that are coming up instead of trying to compartmentalize them or ignore them or figure them out. Let yourself know you have the right to feel your feelings. You can lay your hand on your heart, take some breaths. You don't have to do the fire breaths because there are many medical situations where it's not safe. So definitely do your research. But use the breath and just imagine you're breathing in love. You're giving love to that child who doesn't feel safe. Anytime your emotional nervous system gets wired, your inner child does not feel safe. And I want you to imagine yourself being a Russian doll. And you have these many layers of who you are. And the inner child is in there deep inside, looking out, listening to everything that you say, watching everything that you do. The cells of your body are listening to everything that you say, watching everything that you do. And that we have many layers of this. There are 6 subtle bodies. And so the emotional body right now can be an enormous pathway into deeper embodiment of a lot of the things we have been mentally learning but not yet able to physically embody. And this is what's being offered to us in this energy that we're in. You could also add visualizations of a color during this process that is soothing to you. Thoughts may come up with these emotions, but no matter how critical these thoughts may seem, simply observe them with curiosity as you're doing this practice. You don't have to analyze the thoughts. You don't have to label them as good or bad. I highly recommend that you do not. I don't believe in good or bad. I desire to not exist in the world of duality, of black and white. And I don't think it's a coincidence that most personality disorders are centered around perceiving life in black or white. People are either good or bad. People either hate us or love us. And it's like it's nothing in the middle. And living in a world of black and white is how children live. It's either this or that. They're not able to be flexible in their perception. And if you're not flexible in your perception, you close down the potential possibilities and outcomes that you can experience. Now, resist attaching a meaning to this. So whatever the mind is saying, it doesn't have to mean that it's true. If it's negative, it doesn't have to mean anything. Just observe it. Our mind is a quantum computer and it's programmed by experiences. And you are not your thoughts, because you are becoming the detached observer each time this practice is used. Once you have watched the thoughts that flow in with the emotions, you can then decide from a space of being more emotionally regulated to add affirmations that are soothing to you. You could think them or even speak them out loud. If it seems to be difficult to switch the channel, write them down 21 times or more. Writing ultimately was one of the main ways many of us were programmed throughout education. And all of that programming wasn't beneficial for us. Okay? So reprogram your subconscious mind using some of the same tools that were used to program your inner child. I like to tell myself I'm okay, we're okay, and we're safe. Speaking in plural form because I'm multidimensional. And I'm going to speak to every part of me. I want to be whole. I am whole, and I'm going to treat myself as if I'm whole. Speaking to my wounded inner child, addressing my tone, validating my emotions, choosing affirmations, and breathing. My I divine self, my shadow self, my ego, it's like I'm becoming more integrated. And this experience allows those inner parts to work better together. To sum up this conversation, by using uncomfortable emotions as invitations to learn to be still by observing, you serve a dose of self-love via emotional regulation. Obebe, to observe emotions. Be still. Still motions serve. Alright? They serve us in a way that does not do a disservice to us. So, if this was enlightening or maybe even helped you in some way, I would love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and let me know what was your biggest takeaway from this intuitive guide. And for those of you who would like to learn more, we have a free webinar that I did where I went into details about everything discussed here. And I gave several strategies that you can use outside of Obebe that will be available on our website tonight. Today is May the 30th, 2023. So that's going to be on there tonight. We're going to post this, and you will also be invited to discuss this on our Spaces app, which is a sacred space just to connect and communicate with other like-minded people. Maybe you were inspired and you would like to inspire others. You can do it there in a safe place. So I will be making sure that I complete the editing and get this uploaded by tonight. And we're going to continue this series where I'm talking about ways you can take the more difficult emotions, the difficult things that you have experienced in life, and turn them into treasures, turn them into something that actually validates the new you are becoming by writing new verses, one verse at a time. We are absolutely on a locomotive, baby, to more love, more self-worth. I like to call it Loveville and Selfville in the new verse. Man, your third eye has just been kissed. Your heart has been hugged and loved. Namaste. Numise. One love. Ashe.